All right, this is Deflator on behalf of V Electronics, and in this video, we'll be talking about a few more terms, such as your producer price index, your international price index, your GDP deflator, so on and so forth. Okay, so let's start off with your producer price index. Okay, so this is your producer price index. Okay, and just like with the consumer price index, we figured out the weighted average of goods based on consumption patterns, so based on consumer spending. Okay, this one will have to do with your producer production patterns. Okay, so we all know that in a given economy or a business, you have your supply over here and your demand. Okay, and the supply is based on factors such as input of production, such as raw materials, cost of production, cost of raw materials, okay, government regulations, taxes, tariffs, so on and so forth. Okay, so the producer price index has to do with things like the cost of production, okay, so cost of production. And in general, it has to do with, okay, producer production patterns. So when it comes to production patterns, we know that as the cost of production goes up, okay, the production will go down, the output will go down. As the production goes down, okay, we know that the producer price index will take a hit. Okay, so this is production patterns. All right, now apart from that, we also have things like your GDP deflator. Now, your GDP deflator has to do with, okay, your nominal and real GDP. So we know that a GDP deflator, this has to do with your nominal and real GDP. So nominal over your real GDP times that by 100. So this is your GDP deflator. All right. And we also know that the GDP deflator, okay, factors in all the components of GDP and aggregate demand. Okay. So in the past couple of videos, we've learned that there are some factors relevant to your aggregate demand or real GDP. And these factors include, but not limited to, your personal consumption. Okay, so that would be consumption of the residents of a country. Okay, so personal consumption. Okay, you also have government investment. Okay, so government investments. Okay, you have government spending. Okay, so government spending on firms. Okay, so on and so forth. Apart from that, you also have net exports. So that's imports, takeaway, exports, and net exports. So these are all the factors that make up your GDP, your real GDP, as well as your real aggregate demand. And when it comes to your GDP deflator factors in all these factors over here. And this is the reason why a lot of people consider the GDP deflator as one of the most accurate measurement for inflation rate. Now, even though the GDP deflator does not account for true cost of living, it does account for all these factors, as a result of which it gives you an accurate idea as to what the inflation rate is like, okay, relevant to your real GDPs of your country when you compare them over a period of time. Okay, so when you take a base GDP, your real GDP for a base year, and you compare it with the real GDP of the current year, you can get an idea as to where the economy is headed, okay, or where the economy is going. As a result, you can get a clue as to what the inflation rate is like. All right, now apart from that, you can also, okay, figure out the true cost of living. Okay, you can figure out the true cost of living. Okay, so your true cost of living has to do with your CPI, Consumer Price Index, and we talked about Consumer Price Index. Okay, we talked about the index number as well as the price level method. Okay, so this figures out your true cost of living, and this is one of the most accurate methods to figure out the true cost of living because it factors in your consumer spending patterns. Okay, so true cost of living. Okay, so this is for consumer spending pattern. All right, so this has to do with your consumer price index, CPI. You also have something called the international price index. Okay, so this is your international price index, and this has to do with your import and export of merchandise. So if you have a business that deals with import and export of merchandise, the international price index will give you an accurate measurement as to what the situation is like. So that's merch. All right, now apart from your international price index, okay, you also have your employment cost index. Okay, and when it comes to your employment cost index, it has to do with the inflation of wages. All right, so this has to do with inflation of wages. And when it comes to inflation of wages, what ends up happening is as the demand for labor goes up, okay, so do the wages. All right, so as the demand for labor, let's assume that this is labor, okay, and the demand for labor goes up, okay, so do the wages. All right, so we know that the workers are getting paid more, which obviously means the cost of production for the company is much higher than expected. Okay, as a result of which this is an accurate measurement to figure out, okay, what the condition is like in the employment market. Okay, on behalf of electronics, this is Obey. Have yourself a great day.